Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Hi Yash, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and properly visible?
Yes.
Okay.
Um, we'll just start the session in a moment.
Yeah, sure. I think students have not joined yet.
Yes. Also, the session is live on YouTube, so a lot of students would be there from YouTube also.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm not able to share my screen.
Oh, is it? Let me give you the additional rights to share the
Yes,
screen.
yes. Yeah, now I'm able to share it.
Okay.
Slides are
So
visible?
So we can start the session, Yash. I would just start with a bit of introduction about yourself, and then we will progress to the actual session.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Today, ArthaPoint is there with all their students, and we have introduced a new session with IES Yash Laddha. The session is on answer writing skills required to clear Indian Economic Service and IAS Economics Optional. We are going to, in particular, focus on how to go ahead and how to write answers to grasp the maximum marks in your IES exam. Now, Sir, he had joined the Indian Economic Service in 2020, and he is currently posted as Assistant Director at Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, NITI Aayog. He has done his BS and MS in Economics from IIT Kanpur. So, Yash, we would also like to know a bit about your experience before we go ahead and we deep dive into your session. And before we actually go ahead and start that, I would like to go ahead and start the session with a little light lamping ceremony so that we can, start with an auspicious note. So, allow me to share my screen so that we can do a small light lamp ceremony and then we will jump right into the session.
Yeah, yeah, please.
All right. So I would like to welcome you, Yash, formally for your session. And, we would love to know your experience first about how you became an IES. And then we will start with the answer writing workshop. You may share your screen, Yash.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity, and I would also like to thank ArthaPoint. And I would like to share my background with everyone. So I hail from Indore, Madhya Pradesh, and in 2012 I did IIT JEE, and in that year got a couldn't get a decent college, and due to that I did a drop. I took a drop, and then in 2013 I chose B.S. M.S in IIT Kanpur. So it is a 5-year integrated course, and it is based on IIT JEE only. So post my 5 year, I also got placed in Futures First at the end of my 4th year, but I decided to pursue civil services and Indian economic services as a career. So I in 2019 I gave my attempt in Indian economic services, and fortunately that year itself I could clear it. So, and then after training in a year-long training in Indian Economic Services as a probationary officer, I joined Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office as assistant director, and currently I have completed almost 2.5 years at NITI Aayog, and my present role involves doing evaluation of central government and centrally sponsored schemes. So evaluation is a very critical step to assess the schemes of Government of India. We evaluate those schemes and give recommendations about how to make those schemes better to the respective ministries and department running those schemes. So this was a brief background about myself, and now let us begin our today's session on answer writing. So for every one of you preparing for Indian Economic Services, there are three pillars of, which I consider most important for preparation. First of all is the syllabus. Syllabus is the guiding light. So please always keep syllabus with you. In a case of any doubt, please always refer to the syllabus. Syllabus is very detailed out in case of Indian Economic Service. So please, whenever you feel that you are not, your preparation is not going into right direction, or you think you are diverging, please keep referring to the syllabus. It will provide you a direction. Then is second pillar is the study material. For we all know the standard books, the videos, the coaching you take, also refers to the topper notes and answer sheets. So in case of Indian Economic Services, there might be some scarcity of answer scripts present on the internet, but as economic optional in the civil services examination, a lot of answer sheets, toppers answer copy are available. So because 80% of the syllabus is a overlap between Indian Economic Service and UPSC economics optional, so you should also make judicious use of the resources and answer sheets, answer copy notes, etc. available of the toppers of economic optional. And then we have, yeah, this is important aspect, that we all have done our undergraduation or post graduation in economics, because post graduation is the requirement for Indian Economic Services examination. So whatever we have learned in our undergrad and post grad, we that slides or maybe material, please make use of them also, because they will help you to gain a conceptual understanding. And many a times when in books we find something a little bit lengthy, or we don't have proper understanding developed from reading those things, we can refer to our undergrad and postgraduate notes, which might be more handy. And third pillar is answer writing. This is, we'll restrict our session to the answer writing for this session. And so the most important, I would say, for each one of you is the previous year questions. The previous year question papers of Indian Economic Service, all General Economics 1, 2, 3, Indian Economy, they should, sir, they should be thoroughly analyzed and they should be attempted. So this will give you a good preparation. And whenever you feel that you are not able to understand till what depth you have to read a topic, so in that case, previous year questions will be also a bible. So two things are very crucial: syllabus and the previous year questions. So these two things will actually be your guiding light. So always be ready with these things: syllabus and the answer writing, previous year questions. So let us begin our session. Yeah.
So
So
yes,
first,
before we go ahead, I just wanted to know,
yes,
um, you said that we have to stick to the syllabus, but a lot of times the syllabus is very abrupt. So if the syllabus just says, say, externality, how much should a student deep dive into that topic? Should a student be just doing, say, the definition of externality, or the numericals, or the graphical approach? So how to know how much to deep dive into the syllabus when just a word is mentioned about each topic?
yeah, that is a valid point. I would say that in that case, previous year questions becomes very important. So whenever suppose a topic is mentioned, you are saying externality. So when we browse through previous, suppose 10-year question papers, and we get a, like in public finance, these externality, these questions have been asked. So then we can understand what depth the examination demands from us. So syllabus in conjunction with previous year questions, they will provide in what depth we have to go for each topic.
Got it.
Clearly, we can see a pattern of which question are favorite for the examiner, or which, certainly there will be some questions like ISLM model. So there definitely there will be some portion, some question on that. So we have to do it in proper detail. There are various assumptions, various uh, policy relevance. What happens if suppose monetary policy is changed, fiscal change, government spending is increased? So there are a lot of cases. So these things we have to, and yeah, adding to the question, uh, we can also see the standard books which have been so far we are referring to. So the topic might be explained in the detail in those books also. So
Right.
accordingly we can stick ourselves.
Got it. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Yash. We can continue.
Yes, yes. To understanding the pattern of the question paper, so we can see that generally there are three sections in the paper. First section has first section A has a compulsory question in which there are six parts. So each part consists of 5 marks, and it has to be written in 100 words. In section B, there are total 9 questions, out of which we have to attempt only 6 questions. And there, each question carries 15 marks and it has to be attempted in 200 words. And in section C, there are 6 questions, out of which we have to attempt 4 questions. And each question carries 20 marks and it has to be attempted in 300 words. So when you to add the words, you can clearly see that you have to write approximately 3000 words in a time period of 175 minutes. So to be specific, in case of section A, you have to be you have to allocate 35 minutes approx. In case of section B, you have to allocate 70 minutes, and in case of section C also you have to allocate 70 minutes. So this is the section wise cutoff that you have to stick to. Then going into the per question time limit, so approximately if your question is 5 marker, you have to complete it in within 6 minutes, 5.8 minutes to be specific. If the question is of 15 marks, you have to devote 11 to 12 minutes for that question. And if the question is of 20 marks, you have to devote around 17 minutes to 18 minutes for that question. It becomes very important to stick to these time limits so as to complete the paper in time. So this brings us to the time management aspect. So it is very important that you practice previous year question paper, the mock papers given by ArthaPoint or any other coaching to in the and exam conditions. You have to properly sit and write 3 hour paper adhering to all the time limits and giving it with due diligence. As I in the previous slide also I mentioned that please stick to the time limit allotted to each question. If you start a question, suppose you know that you have to spend 5.8 minutes per that per for that question. If you feel that you are taking more time, just as soon as the dedicated time has been completed, please move to the next question. Because if you are not doing that, at the end a lot many questions would remain, and then you will panic, and in that case uh, uh, many questions would be left unattempted.
Right. So, Yash, would you recommend going with section C first in the final exam, or would you recommend going in the sequence first A, then B, and then C only?
Yeah, that I have covered that in the
Okay.
subsequent slides.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Sure.
will.
Okay.
And so, yeah, as ma'am, to answer your question also, so when you will attempt the questions, when you will give the mock test, you should try to develop your own strategy to attempt the paper. But what I feel uh, necessary, what I'll give my suggestion for it also. And fourth point is the most important. We have to make sure that we attempt whole paper without fail. Then, so these are some general guidelines. First is that we have to read the question paper very, very carefully. Read the question twice. And while writing answer also, many a times we feel now we in our flow we get lost and we start writing something that was not necessary, which question has not asked. So while attempting also, please keep revisiting the question, so as that you are on the right track. Then when you get the paper initially, so make devote some time to understand the paper, take a glimpse of it, and then select the questions that optional questions. Suppose you have to attempt 4 out of 6 questions, so you can utilize that time to select the questions which you will be comfortable in attending to attempt. So at that time only, please tick that you have to select these 3 questions or these 4 questions accordingly. So at the end, when you are going to attempt that section, you don't spend time uh, figuring out which questions to attempt. Then it is advisable that according to the marks of the question, you divide the question into subparts. If it is a 5 marker question, then you should, in a straight go, you should write that answer. If it is a 15 or 20 marker question, then you should divide it into 2-3 parts accordingly. And it is also important that you answer the part according to the marks allocated. Please take this point as an important one, because if the question asks uh, some part in it is of 5 marks and the next subsequent part is of 10 marks, so don't it should not be the case that because you know the first part better, so you give a lot more detail about that part, and the part which was of 10 marks you have given less details, because the marks have been allocated, so you will not get more marks for writing something more in the first part which was of 5 marks. So please stick to this thing. And these point number 5 and 6 are the one which are indicated in the paper itself, that candidates are required to write in clear, legible, and concise answers and adhere to the word limit. So it is also important that according to your own handwriting, you understand that in how many lines approximately, and according to the size, you complete the 100 words or 200 words or 300 words. Suppose in 8 lines, somebody might complete in 8 to 9 lines 100 words, somebody might take 12 lines to complete. So accordingly, have a when you attempt the paper in practice or mock test, understand that accordingly how much is the word limit. And wherever you feel that uh, you have to express more but you are not able to do that, please use graphs and diagrams. So yeah, now let's have 2 examples of answer writing. So this is suppose this question is asked in 5 marks or 10 marks, suppose. So the question is, yeah, uh, is everybody it's everybody listening?
Yes, everyone is online, Yash. In
Yeah,
fact, we
yeah,
just had a doubt
yeah.
on the live chat. Do you think that handwriting also plays a role when you were mentioning that you have to write in 8 to 9 lines? Do you think writing plays a role in getting the good marks in IES or clearing the exam?
Uh, Even if it mattered, so is it in your hands to change the handwriting at this present? So
True.
my answer would be that the exam demands that we should write whatever we write in a legible way. So whatever we write should be clear and should be easily conveyed. So uh, handwriting doesn't matter because it, ultimately it's how well you are able to communicate to the examiner what you have written. So it
Hmm.
doesn't matter it is written beautifully or not, but the question demand should be met.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, please feel free to interrupt in between if any question is there. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. So let's take this question. Suppose the question says that you have to state Okun's law and find out the expectations augmented Phillips curve. So in that case, you should directly write what Okun's law says, that it is a linear relationship between the percentage point change in the unemployment and the percentage change in output. And so what happens that suppose this is the question and it says that somebody might write that it is just a relationship between unemployment and output. So in that case, whatever detailed understanding you have, you should try to write that within the same space given. So if these are the three lines you are writing about Okun's law, somebody might write just that it is a inverse relationship between the output and unemployment. So and on the other hand, somebody will be very specific that it is the percentage change in unemployment and the percentage change in output. And in the subsequent line, he is also writing that 1% change in increase in unemployment will lead to 2% decline in the output, and then followed by a mathematical expression that change in delta y by y is equal to constant minus 2 into change in the unemployment. So when you are writing something, make sure that you, if you know the mathematical expression for that, you clearly write that. Whatever variables are used, you just in a short format to very specific. Don't focus too much on writing the grammatical sentences. Your main target, because the time is very limited, you have to be very specific. You have to don't waste. You have no luxury to waste time on writing full sentences. So wherever possible, like in case of equation, be very specific. In case of diagram, be very specific. Just uh, write what is required. So, mm, two points I want to make. First, that be very uh, in crisp and concise. By concise, I mean that within the one or two lines, everybody will take 2 lines to write about Okun's law. And in those 2 lines only, be very particular and be very specific what you can write about the Okun's law in that line, so that it becomes clear to the examiner and you are meeting the demand of the question. And secondly, when you write a mathematical expression for that, it becomes more clear. It examiner can understand that you know the question very well. And third, when you draw the diagram, so the diagram is visible here. So just make the proper labeling and write the diagram that there is a negative relationship between the two things, GDP and unemployment rate. So this way you have to be very specific what is being asked in the question. And now let's move to the second thing which is asked: find out the expectations augmented Phillips curve. So suppose consider the case that I don't know the expectation augmented Phillips curve, I only know Phillips curve. So in that case, you should do is at least write what you know about the Phillips curve. You have to, there is no possibility for you to leave that answer blank. So in that case, you at least write what is the Phillips curve it gives the inverse relationship between the inflation and unemployment. And then if you don't know anything about inflation expectation, you just make a graph, because you have said that it is the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. At least make a graph of that thing. It will be better than writing nothing. Then if you know about what is inflation expectation, then write. So these are some indicative, don't just stick to it. I have just jotted it for you. Increase in inflation expectation by E leads to an increase in inflation and a decrease in unemployment. So this was given by Milton Friedman, who showed that the short-run Phillips curve assumes constant inflation expectations, and as the inflation expected adjusts to the real inflation rate, you can clearly see from the equation when pi t will become equal to inflation expectation, your the value of ut would be a constant. So UUT is constant, unemployment rate is constant. That gives the long-term Phillips curve. And clearly stated here, we can just a second. And clearly stated here that as the inflation expected to adjust to real inflation rate, then the supply will shift and UT will become constant. So this constant is implied by the long-term Phillips curve. So here also you can write what do you mean by UT, what is pi t, and then accordingly the diagram should be drawn and it should be explained. So this way you can address the question. If suppose it becomes a 15 marker question, so you have to give more details about the question. And in that you can explain the diagram more clearly. You can write some assumptions also. So that will add to the question. So this was a indicative answer for a 5 or a 10 mark question. Now let's see a question of 15 to 20 marks.
So Yash, in the previous question, we have two questions in the chat side. The
Yeah.
first one is asking how to decide what is relevant and what's not. Sarthak has asked this question. And the second question is that do graphs fetch extra marks when you make graphs in these 5 mark questions?
Yeah. So to answer the second question first, yes, graphs will fetch extra marks, because please understand the perspective of the examiner. I have to check, suppose 15 to 20 copies at a go, or maybe 10 to 15 copies at a go. So if you have made my job easier for me to understand that question and that what you have written, in that case I will be very it will be easier for me to give you marks and move ahead. So as we say that a picture represents 1,000 words, similarly graphs are very essential in economics, and it doesn't matter whether it is a 5 marker question or 10 marker question. If you are it will just take maybe 10-20 seconds to just make that graph. And I'm not asking that you make very detailed or complex diagram in a 5 marker question, but a basic diagram giving just a labeling and what the direction is, whatever we should specify that will actually, suppose in you have written some 100 words but that have missed some point, but diagram might supplement that. And first question I couldn't understand, maybe you can ask Saurabh, I think, who asked that to.
Sure. So I think by that it means that again, I think it means the same thing that so in Phillips curve, for example, students when they read the word Phillips curve, they start from the very beginning. They start by writing what is a Phillips curve. Then they start with that basic diagram of wage versus inflation. Then they go to augmented Phillips curve. So how do they judge exactly what to write in this part if it is just a 5 mark question?
Yeah.
So, out of the entire theory of a chapter on Phillips curve, what exactly should be written here?
Yeah. So since it is a 5 mark question, we have to be specific. Here we don't have to give other things, what is Phillips curve or what are the assumption and all those things. We have to be very specific and just write what is expectation augmented Phillips curve. That we have to stick to the question. If this question was asked for 20 marks, in that case we should write what then we can begin. In that also we have to stick to the expectation augmented Phillips curve, but in case of introduction, in assumptions, we can give some information about the Phillips curve also.
Got it.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. So this is the question is, under the rational expectations hypothesis, systematic monetary policy will be ineffective. Explain this statement using a suitable model. This is also one of the question that has been asked in the exams. So it is a 20-mark question, suppose. So that now you have to give an introduction about the questions also. So as you know that rational expectation model belongs to Robert Lucas. So you can clearly explicitly write that the statement should be seen in the context of Robert Lucas model of rational expectation. So examiner knows that you know that it is a Robert Lucas model of rational expectation, and just define it in a line that the Lucas model of rational expectation states that only unanticipated changes in the money supply affect real output. Anticipated changes only affect the price level. This is known as policy ineffectiveness proposition. As the question also says that systematic monetary policy will be ineffective. So you have in the introduction itself said that this is the anticipated change will only affect the price level, and this is known as the policy ineffectiveness proposition. So you have given him two extra information, that this is also known as policy ineffective proposition, plus you have also said that you know it is Robert Lucas model of rational expectation. So within just 2-3 lines, you have the examiner can develop a perspective, yes, that he knows about the question. Then you should come to the assumption part. So assumption part, try to write the assumptions in a very crisp format. Here I have written a little bit verbose, but 1, 2, 3 in point wise, and to be very specific, because you will not get that much time in the exam to write so much big sentences. So that the assumption would be the people form rational expectations about the inflation. This means they utilize all the available information variables to estimate the expected monetary policy, and hence they adjust their price level expectation accordingly. In this, you know that the demand curve in the rational expectation model depends on the real variables, that is the investment, government spending, tax, money supply, whereas the supply curve is dependent on the expected variables, your expectations. So you can write the mathematical functions also, and then graph become must. Here you have to make this I have taken from Freud itself. Clearly this was available there. So you have to make the aggregate supply and demand curve. You have to label the aggregate price level, output. Here your aggregate demand is in terms of the real variables, M0, M1. Your supply is in expected variables. And what you have to show is that when the money supply, there is a anticipated change in systematic monetary policy. Basically money supply shifts from M0 to M1. So what happens in that case? So that now this, what you have to do, you have to systematically explain what these graphs. First of all, you have to make this graph, and then you have to explain this graph. And when you will, the body, this is the body, and this is the most important part of the question, when you will be explaining this diagram. This 20 marks question, I think maybe 16 to 17 marks would be allocated to this portion. So this is very important part. Please devote time here, properly explain whatever the diagram and whatever the question demands. So clearly, see, if we say that there is a, this I have taken from again Freud only, increase in the money supply will shift the aggregate demand schedule. So it will shift the aggregate demand from YD M0 to YD M1. Then this would increase the output. This would increase the output, and so it will increase the output and price level. So this has to be now seen in the conjunction with the labor market. So whenever there is an increase in price, it will shift the labor demand schedule to the right, and there would be a increase in the employment level. So now, because of the increase in money supply was anticipated, this is the crux basically of the expectation, rational expectation hypothesis. Because the increase in money supply was anticipated, it was known beforehand, it will also increase the expected money supply. And when the expected money supply is increased, this will raise the expected price level. And because of the rational expectation, labor suppliers will understand the inflationary effect of the increase in money supply, and due to that the labor supply schedule will shift to the left, and due to that this YS will also shift to the left. Basically they will understand that they will increase their wage. Money supply is more, so the agents will increase their wage, and accordingly there will be a left shift of the supply. There will be less supply. So this way we can see that again the price, though the price level would change, but the output has remained same. So this is the, in conclusion, now you have to write, because of these things there was the systematically monetary policy has been ineffective. So introduction, assumption, body of the answer, and then whatever was asked in the question, then you are concluding it, you are bringing it to a logical end by saying that yes, because of the systematically monetary policy there was policy ineffectiveness. So this is a, yeah, please.
So here, Yash, since it is a 20 marks question, would the student be expected to also show this through equations? Because the PIP model can be showed through the combination of the Okun's law, AD curve, and Phillips curve. So are we required to, and monetary policy? So are we required to show the equations also, or just a written answer with the graph is enough?
uh, the answer depends. Sometimes what happens when you my answer would be that you should, if you know the equations properly and you're confident about it, you should write it, because this is a 20 marks question, and the more information you give, that would actually supplement your answer. So please, in 20 marks question, please don't restrict yourself, and most of the time you will find that you have less content about that question. So if you know the equations, so it is a advantage for you, and you should definitely also write the equation.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now I'll come to, so through these now we can actually define a indicative structure of the answer. So there should be an introduction, and this is particularly for 15 to 20 marks question, because in case of 5 marks question you have to be very specific and direct, and in case of 15 to 20 marks question you should follow a proper format. So there should be an introduction, as we have seen in the last two questions, that we should either define the or explain the theory or model, and whatever extra bit of information about that economist or about its other name we can add in the introduction part. Then it is very important to write the assumptions of the model asked in the question. So please be very thorough with the assumption and try to write all the assumption in very crisp and concise manner. Then comes the body. This is the most important part of the question, and of, most of the marks which you will be getting in the that question will come from the body. So don't, and whenever you are writing an answer, don't get worried too much about the introduction, conclusion, but be very particular about body. So in that, yeah, so don't devote much time while writing an answer into an introduction and assumption, and then when the time is about to end, you have only some few minutes for that question to write the body. So that will be a negative, that will fetch you some negative marks. That will decrease your marks in that question. So you have to explain the model, and in this it is very, economics papers, it is very important to make proper diagram, one, two, whatever is required by the question. And if you have time, if you don't can't make a diagram properly with pen, there is no hard and fast rule. You can use pencil also, scale and pencil, to make the diagram and do proper labeling, and they should be self-explanatory. And then write the conclusion, which is to bring the answer to a logical end as was desired by the question. So these are the indicative structure that you should follow question. So in some general suggestion that you have to use, you can't, when you are writing an economics paper, you can't use general language. You have to use economic terms. You have to use, you have to write rational expectation, you have to write GDP deflator, nominal GDP. You have to be very specific about the vocabulary you use. Then it is very important to substantiate your point with data, especially in case of the Indian economy paper. Writing name of the economist will be will help you to supplement your point. And there is always a question that whether we should use paragraph or point, but it you can use both according to the demand of the question. And also sometimes if in a question you don't know much points, so it's better to write in paragraph, so that it is filling the space also, and if you write only one point, it doesn't look good. So according to the demand of the question and according to your understanding and your knowledge about that question, you can accordingly choose whether to write in point or in paragraph. Yeah, so this is a important suggestion that uh, numerical solving will give you a lot of conceptual clarity. And so although numerical pertaining to that point concept might not be asked in the exam, but it will give you much clarity about it. So what I would suggest, that if suppose you are Okun's law, Okun's law is mostly, it is equation based, and it is theoretical, but what you can do is that you can directly write assignment questions related to Okun's law on Google directly, and you will get to some foreign university assignment or PDF, and you can actually go through the assignment, do some questions in topics which you feel that you don't have good understanding, or you are not able to apply those questions. So please try this. It would really help you to have a good command over that topic. And also it is very important that you practice when you read a particular theory or a model, and then you write and practice the diagram without the support. Just while reading, don't make the diagram. When you actually you have read about a model, then try to replicate that model through diagram in your practice time. So that will actually help you judge how much you have understood that model or not. So these numerical solving and practicing diagram are very important to have command over your subject.
So, Yash, I just received one question here. So,
Yeah.
students are asking that many times when they refer to different books, the format of equation changes. So, for example, Dornbusch uses a different way of explaining things, and Freund uses a different way, and H.L. Ahuja uses a different way. So, they're very confused as to which author they should follow so that it makes more impact in the examination. So, would you have any suggestion of which author to follow to write their answers from?
In that, see, it is very important to stick to one or two sources only for each topic, each subject, like my macro or micro. Micro, you have to restrict yourself to the H.L. Ahuja's book, and macro, you have to restrict yourself to Freud and some topics from H.L. Ahuja on macroeconomics. So be you have to restrict yourself to one source. Don't uh, refer multiple sources for single topic. Only try to use the second source when you don't have some topics covered in that book itself. Then go for a second source, because it is advisable that you stick to a single source and you revise it multiple times. So in that case, when you refer to only a single source, so I think that confusion will come down, and which equation format to be used. So restrict yourself to one source, and in either case, uh, whatever equation you write, I would say that in those case, prefer Indian authors, because Indian authors, uh, I think UGC approved books, and those things would be given more weightage by the. We should think from the perspective that if an examiner is checking, he would be given an answer template. So in that case, would be prepared based on the curriculum of our country of economics subject. So they would refer to standard Indian sources only, I prefer. So in that case, we should also focus on those terminologies or those abbreviations or those indicative things used in the Indian author books. I
Got it.
hope that answers. Yeah.
Okay. So, another question I have, this is from Saurabh.
Yeah.
The question is, how can a non-quantitative background student approach the quant-oriented questions?
Yeah. So a simple answer to that question is to practice. Uh, Basically, as I mentioned, that you should, if you have some topic on which regularly questions are asked, suppose in perfect competition or in ISLM model or in GTP calculation, there are numericals being asked on those topics. So you should attempt the previous year questions on those topics. You should refer to their answer. You should uh, refer to the books. You should see what how the solution is there. What if suppose there is a equation, it demands you to do the differential. So these are the some of the things that non-quant background students face difficulty, that they don't have good command over maths, or they haven't studied maths. So for that, I would say, you whatever basic things are there, like different take to take differentiation, you can understand, you can try to google it, you can try to understand the tools or concept to do that thing. So I would say that at prima facie it might look intimidating, but once you will practice 5 to 10 questions on that topic, and you will try to understand through, yeah, through mentors, then it would really help you to solve those questions, and you will feel that numerical are actually uh, questions where you can score full marks, because these are very scoring things, and you should not neglect these things, and If in case of Indian Economic Services, you have nowadays lot of numerical questions are. In case of regression also, a lot of question demands that you calculate the coefficient and R square is given. These things are there. So in that case, I would say that please solve the similar type of questions again and again, and try to understand what tools or techniques are used in that question. And if you are you're not comfortable with any of those techniques, please Google it and please search it on internet and uh, develop some command over them.
Right. Yes, before we continue, there is another question that I just received. So the
Yeah.
question is on numericals. So suppose the question says that calculate consumer surplus.
Hmm.
So is a student also required to write the definition of consumer surplus, or should he just start solving right away the question?
Yeah. So in that case, I would again see how many marks does the question carry. If it is a 20-mark question, first of all, in case of numerical, you don't need, when the question is completely a numerical one, you don't need to go into lot of details about giving the explanation or definition. You can do the numerical part properly. Just whatever equations you use, whatever formulas you use, you should properly detail them. You should properly explain what is the equation. You can explain the equation, and in a line, you can explain the formula you have written to calculate the surplus. Through diagram, you can explain that, and already there would be a diagram because you have to calculate consumer surplus. Then you can directly find the consumer surplus. One thing would be that you give the formula and try to explain that formula. And if suppose there is a subjective, there is a descriptive question, and in that you are asked to write, calculate consumer surplus. So in that case, I would recommend that you give a definition also.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I would now like to, but I think that point I have missed, but I would like to focus here again. This thing. So if what I would suggest is that you should try to attempt section B or C first, and then attempt section A at last. This has, I think this worked for me because my my preference would be that you do section B, C first. C section should be attempted first, then B, then A. But sometimes what happens that as soon as we enter into the exam hall, we we are not in a state to directly attempt a big question and write all the matlab we are not mentally into that zone. It takes some 2 to 3 minutes or maybe 5 minutes for everyone to get into the zone and that start on writing the answer. So in that case, you can try to attempt any part of question section A to just start, and then you should focus on section B or C. So first, because once you complete the 20 marks question, and that too within time, you will mentally you will be very comfortable, and it will give you a boost. And then you should go to section B. You should attempt the 15 mark question, and then at last you should attempt the section A, because even if you might have exceeded the time allotted for section B and C, and if you have suppose only 20 minutes remaining for section A, then also it is possible that you can complete section A, because in that case it becomes very important that if you write only 30-40 words for that question part of section A, but if you write make some diagrams, through equation you try to explain it, and then you might be able to cover all the 6 questions in the 20 minutes. So, and if vice versa, if suppose you have attempted question section A first, and then section B, and now 30 minutes are remaining or 25 minutes are remaining, and you have to attempt 3 questions or 2 questions of section C. So in that case you will panic, as the exam will come, as the time will be getting completed, you will panic, and you will also feel, array, I have not attempted some 1 mark question, I had to revisit it, I have to revisit some question in section B also. So that would be at the end what happens, we just flip the pages and we are not able to write. So it becomes very important that you attempt high mark questions first, and then leave the small marks question for the end.
Right. Yes, I just received another question. So, how
Yeah.
many past year's paper would you go ahead and suggest students to practice?
Yes. So I would suggest that you do all the paper available. That is
Okay.
the see, it might not be possible if suppose ki you are doing it in a timed manner, but if you have, being a serious aspirant, I would say that because you have time, there is exam will take place in June end, and there are almost 4 5 in the exam. So we should sincerely focus and try to write as many. There is no upper limit. The more you write and the more uh, practice you do, it will be beneficial for you in the examination. But make sure that everybody has a different aptitude, and for someone, if he has attempted 3 4 5 to 5 papers only in a timed manner, he might be comfortable uh, to attempt the paper in time limit, given that he knows all the questions. So for him 5 papers might work. For somebody, he might, because he is not able to complete the paper, so for him maybe more number of papers are to be attempted are required, so that he actually develops the command of completing the paper in time. So for everyone there will be a different number, until that would make him comfortable, him or she comfortable about the number of papers they have to attempt. But I would suggest that you keep attempting the papers as soon as you have completed the topic, because it is very easy that if you have suppose completed the micro portion, so you can attempt general economics paper 1. If you have attempted Indian economy portion, completed Indian economy subject, you should attempt the Indian economy paper. So the more paper you will attempt, so it will be, see, ultimately it boils down to writing uh, the required question in 3 hours, as simple as that. So the more practice we do for the decider day, the more comfortable situation we will be in. And honestly, writing uh, for continuously 3 days these paper, it becomes very tiring. And so it is very, unless and until we have done a lot of practice, uh, most mm, most likely you will be, if you have not done a good practice, you will miss some of the questions. So it is very important that we um, try to keep ourselves in that place many times before, so that on the exam time we don't feel uncomfortable in that situation.
Right. So, yes, sometimes what student would do, right? They will not practice the mock papers with full honesty. Sometimes they kind of see that a particular question they don't know, and then they just simultaneously open up a book and then they look into the answer. So, what would be your suggestion? Like, how did you practice the mock papers? Would you sit in a separate room, open, keep the stopwatch on, or how would you go ahead and practice those mock papers?
Yes. See, because in the real examination also there will be some questions about which you don't have much information, and then in that circumstances also you will have to attempt. You don't have any other choice. If you have to succeed in this examination, you will have to attempt the question anyhow. If you don't know, then also at that time you will require some little bit of bits and pieces of the information you have gathered so far. You will write something. So I would say that the more honesty we will put in writing the examination, the mock paper, it would be better for us to evaluate ourselves. And so I would strictly advise everyone that please, when you have to attempt, either you make a conscious decision that you will not attempt it in a phased in 3 hours. You divide, you will attempt half paper, then you will attempt half paper. But when you have decided that you have to give a mock test, please be follow the rules of the game. Please stick to the conditions of the exam. Don't open up a paper. If you don't know any question, don't start googling it, or don't start referring to the standard books for that question, because it will break the rhythm. And it is very important that you practice. As I have, throughout my session, I have explained how important it is to stick to the time limit. And because what happens that we are so much it takes us to come out of our comfort zone. We study a topic, any topic we study a lot about it, and we don't know, if we don't know how much we have to put in the question, how much information we have to write in that 300 words, then we'll on the exam day also we will miss some information, or we'll not write the content body of that question properly. So the better the number of times you put yourself in that perspective, that you have to write about these questions in 300 words, and from the in the structure of the answer, introduction, assumption, model, conclusion, the more number of times you practice each topic, each concept through that lens, the more comfortable position you will be in the examination. So because it doesn't matter that you know everything, you know all the models in international trade, but if you are not able to put that model into 300 words, it will fetch you no marks. So it is very important that you uh, practice each model, each previous year question asked on that topic within the time limit, so that you are very comfortable in the examination.
Got it. So, Yash, I will take just one last question as I'm receiving multiple on YouTube as well. So I'm taking one last one, which says that should you be first looking into the past year papers and only focusing on the questions that have been, only focusing on the topics that have been part of the past year paper? That means, should you be doing selective studying, or should you be going ahead and studying all the topics mentioned in the syllabus?
Yeah. So it when we start, suppose you see all the past year paper, and though you selectively based on that question you study the topic, so that process will not be uh, sustainable. So you will, in some point you will feel lethargic, and you will lose the momentum, because many a times I also tried that path. So what happens, to be practical, it is that you should more, instead of relying on previous year questions are definitely very useful, and you can't get away with them, but you should stick to the syllabus.
Okay.
Whenever you have a doubt that you have which topic you have to study or not, please refer to syllabus first, because in syllabus, when you see syllabus directly, there are topics, and directly a question is being asked in the examination about those things. So in a way, if we prepare honestly the syllabus, we can 30 to 40% or maybe above that per percent of the paper is known to us. It is nothing new.
Hmm.
So questions directly come from the syllabus verbatim. It- there is mention of Heckscher-Ohlin model, and there is a question on Heckscher-Ohlin model. There is mention about classical economics. There is model on classical economics. So please, please attempt all the maximum number of previous year papers. You have to attempt them so that you don't miss out any important concept, any important topic uh, in that paper from that subject. And please also refer to the syllabus. Syllabus will be the guiding light in case of covering the topics. So if you feel that this topic, for that topic you specifically read the select a topic from the syllabus, read from your standard sources, attempt the paper, attempt the question asked on that topic. So that would be a good way to actually, because you are covering the syllabus, you are referring your material, and then you are attempting the question that has been asked in the examination.
Hmm.
And when you answer that question, be you will be the best judge to understand how much clarity you have about the topic, how that the amount of information that you have about that question, whether it is sufficient on based on what you have read about the topic. Do you need to go into more detail about that topic, or you need to uh, you don't need such information about the topic? So these accordingly you will be able to calibrate. So I think this way it can be followed.
Got
Syllabus
it.
followed by the material and then the previous year question. And
Okay.
this could be done in, like, if what happens if we focus on any of the aspect too much exclusively, we tend to lose our track. If you uh, start focusing on the material only, and you don't cross check with the question asked in the exam, you might be reading something that was not useful also. So it is very important to keep all three simultaneously in your hand and focus. If you devote some 2 hours, so please devote 2 hours to understand the topic. Then please please see what questions have been asked about the topic in the previous year question, and then try to prepare your notes accordingly. Yeah. So when you are preparing notes, so in that you should refer to the previous year questions also, so that you can understand what important aspect theme wise, what important things have been asked about this topic, so that you address all of them in your notes, in your material. So you have to complement your material, your study material, with the help of the previous year questions.
Got it. So, Yash, as we come close to the end of the workshop, any final suggestions you will have for aspirants for the upcoming exam?
Yeah. So in that case, I would like to share my experience when I wrote exam. So what happened that I was preparing for civil services examination also. So in June, I had given my pre. So year long, I have been preparing for. I prepared in bits and pieces for the economics optional, economics, Indian economic services also optional, but preceding the uh, prelims, when I was giving prelims for CSC, preceding that 2 3 months were exclusively devoted for prelims. In that time, I couldn't devote much time for the optional and Indian economic services. So after I gave my prelims, and that year my prelims paper didn't go well. So I had effectively I had only 20 to 25 days. And after
Okay.
that in June, I clearly remember the dates. On 2nd June, I had the prelims paper, and on the 28th to 30th June was Indian economic papers. So Indian economic services papers. So effectively, and 5 to 6 days I spent cribbing about the thing that the paper was not, I didn't gave CSC paper well. So I started preparation sincerely from 10th onward. So those 15-20 days, what came handy for me was what, first of all, whatever notes I had prepared about the topics through my previous 1 year. Second, previous year question paper. They were very useful. I sincerely tried to attempt those questions. At least if suppose there was like you were there was a question how many papers we should attempt. If in case you are not able to attempt much papers, you are if I have said that you should attempt as many paper as possible, and that number varies from aspirant to aspirant. Please reach the number at which you feel comfortable that you can attempt the paper well in examination. Everybody has to reach that level, which accordingly, and then if even if you are not able to attempt that paper, at least you can brainstorm. You can see that paper and you can see if this question is asked, what I would write, what would be the assumptions I would write. If this question is Heckscher-Ohlin model is asked, or so any other Ricardian model is asked, if whether I am do I recall the model, do I recall its assumption, do I recall its graph. So these, and quickly, if not, you can quickly revisit the book and you can see, revise that topic. Similarly, you can go through previous year questions so that at least the important topics are revised. So if you are not able to attempt much paper, at least for the remaining previous year paper, please go through them, browse, and at least have some ideation on how would you, if even if you are not writing, how would you think about attempting those papers. And so what this is, and third thing is that syllabus. Whenever you feel, please make sure that you cover all the topics. Even if there is a small topic, say WTO, say TRIPS, and you couldn't get much time to read through proper standard references or books, at least have some information, maybe 1 page, 2 page prepared from internet on them, and supplement with the question asked in the previous year paper, so that you at least have something to write about. And that, because I said that it is very important to complete the paper anyhow, without fail, without leaving any question. So this would help, because if you know at least something about it, you would be able to write. You will not keep it blank. You will write something. You will write something, and because in that examination mode, we write so fast, na? So at least in 1 minute also we could write a very substantial portion in that answer. And if it is suppose a 10-15 marker question, and if you have attempted that, it might, even if you have attempted that in a minute, you could fetch 7 marks or 5 marks or 6 marks. So it is very important that you attempt the paper, and for that it is important to cover the syllabus, and the previous year questions have to be attempted. So these two things really helped me. And I could, if suppose when the time is limited, it is we can't devote much time to prepare, go back to the standard source and prepare the answers or notes. In that case, I was mentioning that my undergraduation and post graduation topics and my PPTs maybe of professors, and those things came very handy. So yeah, nowadays everything, I am pretty sure that ma'am, you would be also providing some notes and all the PPTs to the student aspirant, so they can refer to those things and try to cover the topic. And then once we have covered the topics mentioned in the syllabus and the previous year questions, I am again and again stressing these two things: syllabus and previous year questions. These two things have actually helped me to succeed in this examination.
Got it, Yash. Okay, Yash, thank you so much for your time this evening. And I know that you have a very busy schedule, but you could fetch some time for the students, and you could enlighten them with your thoughts and how they can clear the exam. It's really great that you could fetch some time for them. So thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that even in future you would be there for us to help enlighten our students, and especially for students who go ahead and who clear the written exam. For them it's kind of a panicky situation when they have to sit for the interview. So maybe in the future, we can keep another session sometime where we can guide them how to go ahead and appear for the interview also.
Sure, ma'am, sure. I wish all the very best to all the aspirants, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Yash. Bye. Thank you everyone for joining in and listening to this session. Thank you everyone.